I do want to go ahead and welcome on to the show. Very pleased to have him here. Senator John McCain. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, John. How are you? Could I mention to you that I'm step back from the committee hearing that we are having with Secretary Napolitano and Admiral Suchak, who is the acting head of the Center for Disease Control, about this whole issue of the H1N1, as it is technically called, and we know of as swine flu. It's a very much needed hearing, and the situation is very tough.
We just got a report, or I just read a story. The World Health Organization is now saying that the numbers of 150 deaths so far have been inflated quite a bit. There's only been 7 confirmed deaths that they are aware of at this point in time. Can you tell us a little bit about the meeting that you just got out of, and what's the level of concern?
Actually, it's a hearing.
A hearing, okay.
And the Center for Disease Control is going to announce that 4 additional states, there are now swine flu cases, and one of them is Arizona. I think this is potentially very, very serious. I would remind our listeners that 36,000 people every year die of the ordinary flu. So, and it's terrible and tragic, but that's just what happens. But this H1N1 or swine flu it has the potential of spreading worldwide. And one of the issues that I focused my questions for Secretary Napolitano was, under what circumstances would we have to close the border with Mexico? And I think that has to be considered here. I think it would have terrible disruption, and it would have real economic problems and all that. But depending on what our assessment of this situation, we may have to consider that.
And I'm going to sort of combine 2 questions into one based off of what the comments you just made. Before I do that, though, Senator John McCain, I do want to welcome you to the show, and it's the first opportunity that I've had to speak with you, and I want to personally thank you for the service that you've given to our country, not only serving in our government, but also in our military. And I want to thank you for that, since that's the first time I've had the opportunity to one. We're talking about closing the ports of entry, but obviously we still have the problem, especially here in Arizona, as you know, of illegal immigrants coming into the country. This also coincides with the increased border effort in trying to curb the rising violence due to the drug cartels, though there's been very little talk about curbing illegal immigration in regards to that. I know there was some talk about sending the National Guard to the border. We know that when that happens, the smuggling stops. Are we looking at a situation now in relation to both issues, to where we can go back and readdress, because it seems like it's sort of illegal immigrants coming in, bringing in potentially more of the swine flu?
Well, first of all, the violence on the border is way up, and it is spilled over and in danger of spilling over. And these people, many times that the drug cartels are also tied to the human smuggling, which is the illegal immigration, obviously. 4 governors, Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, and California, have asked for the National Guard on the border. Senator Jon Kyl and I have written and verbally asked that the president send the Guard to the border. Sheriff Dupnick, the great sheriff there in Pima County, pointed out the other day that just the presence of American in uniform has an effect on these most vicious criminals in the world that are engaging in human trafficking as well as drug trafficking. So we will continue to do everything we can, including, frankly, legislation at the appropriate time, if necessary, to get the Guard to the border until we have sufficient customs, border patrol, et cetera, in order to secure our border.
You just mentioned as well, coming out of your hearing, and this is the first we've heard of it, that we do have the first confirmed case of the swine flu here in Arizona?
In the testimony that Secretary Napolitano just gave, she said the Center for Disease Control will be announcing shortly that 4 additional states And frankly, I can't remember the other three because it grabbed my attention. Arizona will be one of them.
Jumping on
Michigan, I think Michigan was one of the other four as well, and Nevada was another one. I don't remember the fourth one.
Being given the short time that we have with you, Senator John McCain, I want to switch topics here a little bit. Obviously, the big news coming out of Washington yesterday was Senator Arlen Specter and his leaving the GOP to join the Democrats. Some of the comments that have been made since then, and the comments made by Specter himself, that the party has gone too far right and is pushing out the moderate Republicans. I've gotten several emails from listeners who look to you as also a moderate Republican. Do you agree with Arlen Specter's comments that the GOP has gone too far right and it is pushing out moderate members of the Republican Party?
Arlen Specter left the Republican Party, and this is my personal opinion, because he saw he couldn't win re-election as a Republican. Frankly, I don't think it was more complicated than that, John, and I've seen polls that indicate that. Do we Republicans have to do better, say, in the Northeast, where we have just senator from New Hampshire and two from Maine, and are we losing seats? So we're down to 40. That's the lowest we've been since 1976. Yes, but do we have to include people who may not agree with us on specific issues? Yes, but we can't depart from the principles and fundamental philosophy of the Republican Party. America is a right-of-center nation. We are a right-of-center party. So we have to stick to our principles. Look, one of the reasons why we lost, in all candor, in 2006 and 2008 is we Republicans let spending get completely out of control. Let's assume responsibility for it. Let's stop the pork barrel spending. Let's commit to balanced budgets. My friend, part of this was our departure from the principles of fiscal and careful stewardship of Americans' tax dollars. So we've got to get back to some of the fundamentals that the Republican Party won the majority on under Ronald Reagan and then in the 1990s. You see my point?
I do, Senator McCain, but I do want to ask you this. What is the difference? What is the difference between what George W. Bush did at the end of 2008 with the initial bailouts and sort of the continuation of that with the Obama administration in your eyes? Because there seems to be a difference here where, one time it was okay, but then the other time it was bad. Where's the difference lie?
Well, the difference is that the President of the United States told members of both parties that the economy was going to collapse. The stock market had gone down 700 points in one day, wiping out $1.2 trillion of American savings. And every expert said the American economy is going to collapse. The problem is, in my view, is that they totally mismanaged the money that they were given. I was told, and other members were told, this will go to stabilize the housing market. We'll go out and buy people's mortgage that they can't afford to live in their homes and give them a mortgage they can afford to live in. Within 3 days, after we passed the first, quote, bailout, they started bailing out these financial institutions. Now we find ourselves owning automotive companies, financial institutions. This is the greatest takeover of the free enterprise system in the history of this country by the federal government. And my friend, I am scared to death.
Senator John McCain, how do the damage has been done. And now it's more an issue of sort of status. What do we do? Say the midterm elections go the way of the GOP, and we end up regaining some power. I'm just looking into my sort of Jon Justice crystal ball. How do we correct all the money that's already been spent and will be spent between now and when that happens? Because, you're looking at a situation where, myself and my children are going to be paying for this for years. I mean, how do we go back and fix the damage that's being done?
John, we have committed generational theft to your kids, my kids, grandkids, and we've got to do what was my proposal as an alternative to the stimulus package. Once there's positive gross domestic product growth of 2% after inflation, we have to go on an automatic requirement to reduce spending to get us to a balanced budget. That was rejected. That was rejected. Second of all, we need to have reform of Social Security and Medicare. The elephant in the room is the tens of trillions of dollars of unfunded liability associated with Social Security and Medicare. But first, we got to stop the out-of-control spending. My friend, we used to talk about millions. Now we're talking about, and then we were talking about billions. Now we're talking about trillions. And meanwhile, the president says we're going to cut $100 million in spending. That's an insult.
Well, that was the next question I was going to ask you. I mean, it seems like the numbers are lost on people right now. You know, millions of dollars used to seem like a lot, and then billions used to seem like a lot, and I don't think people really grasp the concept that aren't following politics closely enough to understand just how much money that is. But along those same...
The budget that was just passed, my friend, the best estimate by 2014 is that we'd only have, quote, only $500 billion and some over $500 billion in deficits. It's staggering.
Do you see any possibility that Barack Obama is going to be able to keep to his word and cut taxes given all the spending that's been done?
No. In fact, I don't know of any time in history when you have spent in deficits of this measure that you didn't have hyperinflation, because you got to start printing money. And that's the greatest enemy of middle-class America.
In the few moments that we have left, I know.
Can I just say, John?
Oh, sure, go ahead.
The economy will recover because America is a great nation. We got entrepreneurs, we got productive workers, etc. But what happens after the economy recovers in the form of hyperinflation along the lines of the 1970s, which then leads to the devastation of the economy, which requires incredible wrenching out.
In the few moments we have left, I need to address the upcoming 2010 primary. Were you surprised to see a challenger to you in the announcement of Chris Simcox in his run for the Senate?
There's already been one. I think the individual's name is Deakins. I take every race seriously. I take every challenge seriously. I take nothing for granted, but I'm also confident that the people of Arizona will judge me by my record in my service to the state of Arizona.
Along those same lines, Chris Simcox is running on a platform of being the more conservative of the two of you. A lot of people here in Arizona and a lot of the calls and emails that we get, consider you, more moderate. And there's some frustration there. How do you intend to win back those people who think that you've gone too far to the center and want you to be more conservative?
Look at my record and the Citizens Against Government Waste, the National Taxpayers Union, all of the people who grade you, and my support for the military and the war in Iraq and the surge in Iraq, which I understand that Mr. Simcox opposed.
One more,
national security is a big and important issue with the American people. I'm proud of my record in leadership of this country. And if it hadn't been for Lindsey Graham and me and a handful of others, we'd have surrendered in Iraq, and we would be facing the greatest threat to American security, probably one of the most in our history.
Along those same lines, and we'll wrap up just with this. Mm-hmm. I did hear, and I watched Lindsey Graham making comments in regards to Arlen Specter yesterday, saying the country is still center right, and the problem that we have is that we're propping up GOP candidates that are too far right and too conservative, that are unelectable. It seems the party is in disarray. How big of a mess do you think the GOP is right now, especially given light of what happened with Arlen Specter?
Well, first of all, I think I described to you why Arlen Specter left the party. Of course, we have to recruit and win elections. That's what parties are supposed to be all about. America is a center-right nation. The Republican Party is a center-right nation. I've been through these cycles before, John. We lost overwhelmingly in 1986, in 1982. We lost in 1992. And the party has come back, and we are the party of the future of America, as well as some of the greatest accomplishments of the past, going back to Abraham Lincoln. We will rebound and recover. We've got a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do with the Hispanic voter, who should be ours just by nature of the voter. And of course we have to do better, but we can and will do better, and we will win elections, and we will be able to articulate the principles of less government, lower taxes, strong national security, and all the principles of our party that I've adhered to, and why I am known as a conservative Republican, and why I was able to secure the nomination of my party in a very tough fight against very highly qualified individuals.
Well, along with the comment you made about the economy, Senator McCain, about it rebounding, and I believe that the same is true for the GOP, and I think there's a lot of questions being asked, but I think that's a good thing, and I think it's gut check time for a lot of conservatives in this country, and I think that is a good thing as well. That was apparent in the Tea Parties, and it's time.
Let's have the debates. Let's have the discussion. Let's let 1,000 flowers bloom. We got some great governors out there: Tim Pawlenty and Sarah Palin and Jon Huntsman and Bobby Jindal, and a lot of Eric Cantor's a good, smart, young leader over in the House. So I'm optimistic. We can do this. We can do this. Stay to our conservative philosophy that has made us great in the past and will make us great again in the future.
Senator John McCain, thank you so much for taking time with us this morning. I know you're very busy, and we greatly appreciate it. And thanks again for your service, sir. And hopefully we'll speak to you again real soon.
Look forward to being with you in person in Tucson.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye.